Hello, my fellow Southlanders. Welcome back to the Sanctuary of Stories. You know, we live in a world that is very loud. Everyone is shouting, everyone is trying to be heard, and everyone thinks that the person who talks the most is the smartest. But in the ancient kingdom of Okazu, there was a mystery that proved otherwise. They say that the loudest drum is often the one filled with nothing but air. Today, we are looking at the legend of Amara, a girl the village called the empty vessel, but the heavens called the melody of peace. In Okazu, Amara was a girl who had not spoken a word since the day she was born. While other girls her age were busy gossiping at the stream and singing at the festivals, Amara was always silent. The villagers laughed at her. They said she was cursed by the gods. Her own stepmother treated her like a servant, saying, "A woman without a voice is a woman without a soul." Amara lived a hard life on the outside, but inside, her soul was a garden. She spent her days in the hills, carving small flutes out of bamboo. She would blow into them, but no sound came out. The village boys would throw sand at her, mocking her. Look at the mute girl, playing a silent flute to a deaf forest. They didn't know that every time she blew into that flute, she was breathing peace into the very air they breathed. One Harmattan season, a dark cloud settled over Okazu. It wasn't a cloud of rain, but a cloud of discord. Suddenly, brothers began to fight over a single inch of land. Husbands and wives who had been together for 40 years began to break their pots in anger. Even the king, King Obiora, lost his legendary patience. He became a tyrant, throwing his loyal advisors into the dungeon for the smallest mistakes. The chief priest declared that a spirit of noise had captured the kingdom. He said, "Unless a song of pure, selfless love is played from the Hill of Echoes, the people will eventually destroy one another until not a single house is left standing." The king announced a great competition. He offered a chest of diamonds and the title of royal voice to anyone who could sing the song to break the curse. The most famous singers came from far and wide. They brought harps, they brought heavy drums, and they practiced their highest notes. One by one, they climbed the Hill of Echoes. They sang until their throats bled. They drummed until their fingers were bruised. But the more they sang, the angrier the village became. Why? Because they were singing for the diamonds, not for the people. Their songs were full of ego, and the spirit of discord only grew stronger with their noise. As the village stood on the brink of a civil war, the silent Amara began to climb the hill. She carried nothing but her small, bamboo flute. The crowd began to jeer. "Get down from there, you mute girl. If the greatest singers in the land failed, what can a girl who cannot even say hello do?" Her stepmother tried to pull her back, embarrassed by her useless stepdaughter. But Prince Ikemba, the king's only son, saw something in Amara's eyes. He saw the soft power we always talk about. He stood in front of the crowd and said, "Let her play, for we have heard enough noise. Perhaps it is time we listen to the silence." Amara reached the peak. She closed her eyes and thought of all the years she had spent being mocked, all the years she had spent serving in silence, and all the love she had for the land that hated her. She placed the flute to her lips. At first, there was no sound. The crowd laughed. But then, a frequency began to hum. It wasn't a sound you heard with your ears. It was a sound you felt in your chest. It was a melody so pure, so soft, and so hauntingly beautiful that the birds stopped flying to listen. As she played her silent flute, the dark cloud over the village began to dissolve into golden sunlight. The angry men dropped their machetes and began to weep. The king fell to his knees, his heart softening instantly. The spirit of discord could not survive in the presence of a soul that had no ego. When Amara finished, she finally opened her mouth to breathe. And for the first time in her life, she spoke. Her voice didn't sound like a normal human voice. It sounded like the chime of a silver bell. She looked at the king and said, "Peace is not something you shout for. It is something you become." The prince, Ikemba, walked up the hill. He didn't offer her diamonds. He offered her his hand. He realized that a kingdom ruled by a loud king and a silent, wise queen would never know war again. He married Amara, not because she was the loudest, but because she was the deepest. The girl they called Empty became the mother of the nation's joy. Southlanders, the moral of the silent flute is a lesson for us all. Your greatest strength is often hidden in the things the world mocks you for. If they call you too quiet, too soft, or too different, remember Amara. Don't use your voice to add to the noise. Use it to add to the peace. True value is felt, not just seen or heard. The person who has mastered silence has mastered the world. If you are a Softlander who knows the power of being quiet and observant, type "My silence is my power" in the comments. Share this story with someone who feels misunderstood. Subscribe to Softwords Nija for more legends of the soul. Stay soft, stay wise, and stay blessed. I'll see you in the next one.